Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got a couple of lads back to the channel. I've got Peter Jones. Welcome back, my friend. How you going?
Nice to be here, sir. Thank you.
And also Joe B. How are you, my friend?
Great. And I'm really great as long as I'm on this show. So
good stuff. We are going to talk about Michael Schenker Group and do a ranking of the first four albums. So we'll go round robin in reverse order from 4 to 1, 1 being the one that is our favorite album. So maybe without further ado, I'll go to you, Pete. What is your number 4 pick for the Michael Schenker Group?
All right. Thank you, Peter. Again, pleasure to be here. Joe, nice to see you as well, sir, fellow Chicagoan. Yeah. You know what? This is a very bizarre set of 4 albums. 4 albums, 4 different lineups, 4 different producers. This is kind of not too often do bands have this kind of, flex that's going on here. So, but we'll go straight to number 4. And this one is the easy one of the 4 for me. This goes to September 83 and the album Built to Destroy. I don't think it's a bad record. There's some good moments on it. Gary Barden is back after the one-time wonder of Mr. Graham Bonnet. There's some great tracks on here. It's kind of like the White Snake, although it's not as drastic. There's not different mixes or different players. There's a UK version and a Japanese version, and then there's a US version. The same tracks, but they're in different running order, and they do feel different. Rock My Nights Away is okay. It's kind of poppy. The sound on this is hard to, it's challenging. Schenker sounds good. Ted McKenna's drumming is solid, but there's just something that doesn't settle right with the bass or the overall feel of it. Captain Nemo, I think, is a fun instrumental. I enjoy that. I love Red Sky, probably my favorite track on there. It's probably where Michael shines the most. It's more commercial. But I think the return to Gary didn't really give them the lift that they were looking for. And it kind of took them a step back. Although this was number 6 in Japan. The run of, there's several of these records that are, a couple top 10s and one top 15. They were huge over there, but wasn't happening so much here in North America, at least not in my neck of the woods. We got these in real time, all 4 of these. So these were in historical order. But it's the weakest of the 4 for me, so I'd go with that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Pete. Just as a chart placing, I didn't find a chart placing for the US. It hit UK number 23, and as you said, top 10 in Japan. So,
right.
Yeah, interesting. All right, Joe, what's your number 4 pick?
Well, I'll have to echo a lot of what Peter says because this is my number 4 as well. And I agree with his picks with the production. I don't like the more commercial direction it went in. But as Peter can attest, both of us coming from Chicago, Michael Schenker was like godlike. And UFO in Chicago is on the same level as Rush and Zeppelin. I mean, it was a huge band in Chicago. My favorite Michael Schenker story is I worked at a radio station at the University of Iowa, and I told a guy that I liked Paul Chapman UFO just as much as Schenker UFO. And he went at me. Like he wanted to get into a fist fight. I didn't say it was better. I just said, just as much. But as far as ranking, yeah, this is number 4. Captain Nemo, probably my favorite song. It's Eddie Trunk's theme for years. That's what made it famous. He's a Michael Schenker crazy fan, UFO. Rock My White Nights Away, as soon as it started, I was like, I don't know. As we dive into the other albums, you'll see why I find this to be kind of lame. As Peter brought up, changing producers, changing band members. I just think it's the insane mind of Michael Schenker at play here. He's never happy. We'll get into another album where he was dying to get a singer, and then he didn't like the singer, and then he was out, and he's made amends with just about everybody except his brother, who he still despises. But yeah, that's my number 4 as well.
There's always time, Joe.
Yeah, I know.
There's always time.
We did that super group one of your early episodes, and I said I would need a therapist to to put the Schenker brothers back together. So that would be a condition. Yeah.
Well, while he's breathing, there's still time.
Yes.
I'm the third guy that's going to pick this. Built to Destroy is my number 4. Thank you, Pete.
Yes, sir.
I like the album cover.
I do too.
Yeah. And apparently Schenker, it took him a hell of a long time to smash that back Mercedes window. It was quite frustrating, but it's a wonderful shot. If only the music was as pyrotechnic as the album cover. It's a little bit synthy. It is listening to what's in the charts, new wave. There's all these little bubbly synth lines. I want the raw crunch of the earlier stuff, and I don't get a lot of it. But there's still enough here that I can enjoy on a commercial level. I actually like Rock My Nights Away. I don't mind that. I think that's not a bad little opener. It's very poppy, but it's got a blistering guitar solo all the way through. I mean, Schenker's playing is still mighty fine, but it's all the embellishments and the mayonnaise around it that kind of makes it a little bit less of an enjoyable experience. It's a little bit too, listening to what's in the charts. Captain Nemo's wonderful. It's superb. And it's really accentuates his neoclassical flourishes. It's actually Blackmore taken a couple of leagues further. So, I mean, Schenker is a protege of Blackmore, and I can't fault the tonality of his guitar playing all the way through. No. It's just wonderful. There's one song I wrote down here, Time Waits for No One. I said this could be on a Jerry Bruckheimer film in the 80s. It sounded like it could come on Flashdance or one of those 80s movies. It's that dated. Anyway, that's my number 4, Built to Destroy. There's got to be a number 4 in the top 4, and that's got to be it. So that's the one for me. Alrighty, Pete Jones, what's your number 3?
Well, while the 4th one was easy, the next 3 are much more difficult. I've got things that I love about each of them independently. And like the experiment I do with my friends, where if I could take 5 or 6 fast food places, combine all their different ingredients and make the super burger, I would do that. There's things about this that I would do as well. It kind of pains me to put this at 3, but I kind of have to. I'm going with Assault Attack at 3. And, instantly this one conjures up a lot of support from people who have this really high, if not their ultimate of these 4. First of all, we've got Martin Birch, and obviously the sound on this is spectacular. Everything is huge. The drums sound great. Michael's guitar sounds mammoth. I am not a hater of Graham Bonnet, but I'm not a big supporter of Graham. I was tarnished October 12th, 1979, my birthday, International Amphitheater. They opened for Blue Oyster Cult on the Down to Earth tour, and it was without question the worst concert I've ever seen in my life. It was, other than Cozy Powell, which was like seeing heaven, it was awful, just plain awful. So I have some issues with Graham, but on album, he's always been good, and he's good here. The songs are good. There's not a single skipper in the bunch for me. And I, obviously the tracks that I like the most I love Samurai. I think Ulcer is really strong. It's just really driving and it's got so much energy. And I like Rock You to the Ground. I love that slow, grindy, kind of just heavy. It allows that Schenker tone to just really resonate fully. But the whole album sounds great. This one went to number 9 in Japan, 151 on Billboard. So it's not lighting up anything here in the US. And Martin came right straight off of the Number of the Beast sessions to do this, but it was a one and done with Martin. And I guess, I was certainly hoping that a follow-up would also include Mr. Birch, but it didn't. So I'm going to say Assault Attack at my 3. And I also love that cover too.
That's a great album cover. Thanks, Pete. And this went to number 19 in the charts. So as you'll see, there's been a bit of a slow decline in the chart placings in the US and the UK. So, but thank you for that. Joe B, what is your number 3?
Again, I'm going to have to echo a lot of what my friend Peter Jones said. This is my number 3 album as well. And you phrased everything perfectly. I'm not a huge Graham Bonnet guy. I think he's okay. I know a lot of people love this album, but I don't want to give too much away. But I don't want to give too much away because then you'll figure out what my number 1 is. But it's sonically it sounds great. The vocals just don't do it for me. There's I don't know. There's songs on it just that are good, very good. But yeah, Samurai is by far my favorite track on the album. It's got a very cool chord progression, and I think that's where Graham's vocals sound the best. So I'm going with that with my number 3. To your fast food point, Peter, once again, a Chicago connection. I had a very close friend who's a Chicago police officer, and I named my middle son's middle name is after him, and he used to do that. He'd go to McDonald's to get the fries, and he'd go to Superdog to get the hot dog, and he'd hit all and he'd combine his meat. Nothing that was healthy, but yeah, he had to go with this place, and this place to combine all this fast food.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, that's my number 3 as well. I don't want to give too much more away because then it'll give away my number 1. So
yeah, thanks, Joe. Well, and that's the problem with only
about my number 1.
Okay, no worries. That's the problem when we've only got 4 because the game will be up very shortly. So Anyway, we'll persevere. Sorry, lads, going to be a little bit controversial, but that's my number 3, Michael Schenker Group. Yeah, the first one. The thing that sort of lets it down for me, and that's only like a slight blemish, is the production. The production doesn't sparkle like the other albums, and this is a big bugbear that I have with Roger Glover productions. They don't kind of sparkle and have that really distinct bottom end or separation of instruments that some of the other ones. And some of the other albums that I'll discuss as we get deep into the show kind of sort of put a bit of a shadow of this album. This album's got some great songs, don't get me wrong, and they are concert staples. Armed and Ready, Cry for the Nations, Feels Like a Good Thing. Into the Arena is like a signature instrumental. It's got all that tension, it just builds up, and you've got this wonderful, sublime guitar line. The thing I like about the singer, Gary Barden, he's not the greatest rock singer or heavy metal singer, but he's got a fragility about his voice, and it comes across quite emotive, and it really gives a little bit of gravity to the material. And that's what I think, out of all the singers, he's actually my favorite. Even though he's not technically the best singer, I think he's a real honest meat and potatoes singer, and it suits the material. The band's fine. You've got Simon Phillips on the drums, you've got Mo Foster on bass, and Don Airy putting a little bit of keyboards. And Schenker's guitar work is just on fire. So he was coming, the late 70s, he was really hitting a peak. Strangers in the Night, and then coming into this solo career. I think, he was full of creativity. He was musically curious. For God's sakes.
Love Drive as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
love
putting Calypso in front of Cry for the Nations. Michael Schenker doesn't, he's said in a lot of interviews, he doesn't listen to what's in the top 40. He doesn't listen to music. He's in his own bubble. And I like that because he just creates his own world. So, look, really the separation between 1 and 3, we're talking about decimal points, and I had to mark it down because I find the production a little bit dull. But the musicology side of it and songs, it's outstanding. So Michael Schenker Group, that's my number 3. And I like the album cover too.
I do too.
Very iconic. All right, Pete, the game's going to be up soon. Number 2.
All right. Well, I'm going to tie it into something that I left out on Built to Destroy, because both Built to Destroy and my next choice have extensive demos that are available online that I happen to have on disc. Built to Destroy, Assault Attack. Let me clarify that, Assault Attack. There's demos out there of Schenker and Chris Glenn with Cozy Powell working through the material that ended up on Assault Attack. And that's very interesting to listen to. And so we get to number 2. The problem I have with this is what separates it from my first choice. So I'm going with the debut. And the songs are spectacular. But there are also original demos with Billy Sheehan and Denny Carmassi, which are very interesting to listen to, much heavier players than what Simon and Mo Foster are. So they do have a completely different kind of essence and feel to them. The debut, I don't want to use the terminology incorrect, but it's got more of a Jeff Beck fusion type feel or sound to it than a rock album. And that's partly because of Simon and Mo and everything else. So it's got more of a there and back kind of feel from that rhythm section with Michael on guitar. Gary is a great singer, but Gary is a victim of a lot of singers that I call the studio versus live thing. He tends to sing in the studio at the peak or just beyond his peak of his natural range, which you can do in the studio because you get a million takes to do it. But as soon as you go to live, a lot of times you can't translate it. The rigors of the road, you only get your one shot at it if you're health or whatever. And Gary always sounded a little strained, like he was just kind of not able to keep it up there. And that was always a problem with me. But having said that, you mentioned the tracks on here. Looking Out for Nowhere. Holy cow. That's a great track. Lost Horizons is a really underrated track. Again, very, very heavy and slow. That's very untypical of Schenker. He doesn't usually do those. There's not that kind of track on the UFO albums. There isn't anything in that kind of style or feel, which I think is great. I also like the short instrumental that goes on. Feels Like a Good Thing is probably that, and Looking Out for Nowhere are probably my 2 favorite tracks on there. It's a really great record, and it really blew us away when it came out because we were really excited when it was released, and I've loved it all along. But it's gonna sit at number 2.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Wow, we're on the same wavelength. That's my number 2 as well. But man, when this came out, you talk about Schenker hitting his stride because he had Strangers of the Night. He did the Love Drive album. Right. There's rumors that he might join Aerosmith. And then he comes out with this and we lost it. We were like, wow, this is awesome. So, I said I liked Chapman UFO just as much as Schenker UFO, but these 2 albums with Michael Schenker are way above what he did with UFO, I believe. And this album, so too. You just right into Armed and Ready, Crime for the Nation's more of that reggae. It start and then it goes into just a kick-ass song. Victim of Illusion. I maybe my favorite song on the album. Feels Like a Good Thing, Into the Arena, another fantastic instrumental. But yeah, it's just a great album. And we bought it and we lost it. We were like, this is incredible, and played it constantly.
Nice. All right.
I think maybe one of the knocks for me is that right off the bat, this was not a touring band. So this was an album that was put together with players that did not go on the road with them. Schenker, Powell was with them right away. I remember we got an EP of live material almost instantly upon this, after this was released. And it's like, oh, Cozy's in the band. We're like, okay, cool. But this is not what you were going to get live from what was on this record, studio wise.
It's hard to keep track of the musos in the family tree, isn't it? Because they're chopping and changing. I've actually got a Blu-ray of Michael Schenker in Tokyo about 10 years ago, or maybe a bit longer. And Simon Phillips finally sat on the stool and he introduced Simon, first album, first performance. And he did a mighty fine job.
And he plays it flawlessly. Yeah.
Mighty fine job.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, what do you think of the production? I made some comments about Roger Glover's production. What are your views? Are you okay with the production on the first album?
Yeah, no problem with this album. Yeah. It's just, spoiler alert, the next album is I love it just so much. It's not a knock on this album. This album is great, but the next one is just like epic for me. So
yeah.
I think it comes down to one of the key factors for me, and it was true of UFO, and it was certainly true of his time, MSG and other bands. Chrysalis is a real hit or miss label. Most of their productions are not that great. A
lot to do with that.
Too. The tall stuff. Other things around, they just weren't very good. And so it's kind of a product. I think they sound better than the UFO ones do. But it's dry. It does have that sin after sin kind of feel to it, with a little more amped up guitar, because I think Michael's guitar is more mature than what Tipton's and Downing's were at the time. But it's very typical Roger.
Yeah.
Clean. It's dry. It's got that machine head kind of overtone to it. But I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, it's crispy dry for sure. And it's a shame about Chrysalis because their roster of artists are just amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go to my number 2, and I can tell you the production on this album is just absolutely top notch. MSG. So you have got Ron Neverson engineering it. Need I say who, Quadrophenia, Bad Company, Zeppelin, Ozzy, UFO? Should I say any more? I love this album. I just think it is stunning. It hits you between the eyes when you hear Cozy Powell's drumming on Ready to Rock and you go, okay, this is the sound. I think Michael Schenker is one of these guys. He's got music in his head and he wants to get it out and translate it into tape. And I think that this album, he was getting there. And that first song, it just hits you straight between the eyes or between the ears. The sound is monstrous. On and on, love that. But I Want More. He's got all that beautiful neoclassical signature licks. It's got wonderful emotional build-up. Never Trust a Stranger. Beautiful, great solos. Looking for Love. It's absolute thunderous drumming. And I hear a lot of Ritchie Blackmore. It's got those kind of Ritchie chord progressions. So you can certainly see he's definitely not that far removed from the old Rich. I love this album. Barden's vocals, there is that fragility. He kind of breaks with the upper register, but I don't mark it down because I just think it just shows it. There's kind of like an honesty about his delivery and the emotion, and it really adds weight to a lot of the songs. Look, I just think it's just an inspired album, and incidentally, the production went way over budget. And there was a little bit of a debt that MSG had to carry for the rest of the term of their career because they spent so much time refining the sound. So
Japan saved them, or they really would have been in real trouble.
yes, absolutely. Schenker's guitar playing, I don't know, I'll just repeat myself. His phrasing, his sense of melody and his tone is just sublime on this album. I think if anybody wanted to come cold into Michael Schenker and picked up this album and listened to it, it's not a bad starting point, really. This album went to number 14 in the UK, and US went to number 81. So there was a bit of a fan base, but it's my number 2. I love it to bits. It's a great album.
Absolutely.
All right, Pete, over to you.
All right. Well, there's a lot of parallels for me between these first 4 records, and specifically the first 3, and the first 3 with Rainbow. You have an album that comes out with a band that doesn't become the band. They get replaced by the same drummer in both circumstances. The second album is the bigger production, but in some ways, I actually like some of the songs better on Long Live. And in this case, and if we're using this cover or Joe's shirt, which I think is the coolest logo in one of the best covers ever, this is interesting to me. Obviously, I think the Sonics are better on Assault Attack, but the songs are way better here. The band is better. It's a cohesive group, and he upped the game. They had, and look, obviously, Simon and Mo are not sloggards, okay? They're first-class great musicians, but they weren't touring guys. They weren't going to go out on the road. These were road dogs. These were guys who, and especially he reunites with Paul Raymond, and now they've got a band that is both capable studio and live, as evident of One Night at Budokan, which just crushes. Side 1 of this is my favorite side of all of the solo records. Ready to Rock, Attack of the Mad Axeman, On, and Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. Holy crap, is that thing heavy. And Cozy is just stunning on it. My favorite track on here is, and Peter alluded to it, Looking for Love. It's just relentless. It's just so driving. And Schenker's solo is so hummable and singable. It's so melodic and simple, but so dead on perfect. And it's and I even like Secondary Motion. I have no problem with that track at all, especially in the position at the end of the record. Maybe if it's middle, it kind of ruins the flow a little bit, but sitting there at 8 works great. And is a nice contrast to where they were with Looking for Love before that. Never Trust a Stranger, great track. I've always enjoyed that. So this is the go-to for me. If I'm putting on one, it's this one all day.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe.
Well, now I can go deeper. I agree with Peter, but I could go way deep on this album because this album probably cracks my top 10 of all time because this is a super group. I was so pumped when he had Paul Raymond in the band and Cozy Powell. And I was like, holy cow. And it starts off with Ready to Rock. Okay, great song. Attack of the Mad Axeman, awesome song. The 3 songs, well, the side ends with On, which is incredible with the keyboard. The keyboard is haunting on it and just goes into an epic song. Then Let Sleeping Dogs Lie is one of those songs that I want it to go on forever. It's like Kashmir or Stargazer, with Rainbow. It's just, I'm like, oh my God, this song is incredible. I still listen to it often now. It's a top 10 album for me. But you go to the other side and now you listen to it in your car on iTunes and you got Sleeping Dogs Lying, But I Want More. But I Want More is, again, another incredible song. And the song titles mean so much to me because Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, I tend to hold grudges and want, and it's been recommended to me to let Sleeping Dogs Lie. So that the actual song title means a lot to me. But I Want More is I've also been described, I'm never satisfied. And I'm like, I'm feeling, but I want more, and these song titles resonate with me. The songs are epic. Never Trust a Stranger is great. Looking for Love and Secondary Emotion. Yeah, Secondary Emotion. I give me a chance. It's a great ending. But the trio of songs with On and On, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, and But I Want More are they're up there with the Rainbows, the Zeppelins. It's just incredible stuff for me. So this is by a long shot my number one because it's a top 10 album of all time for me. And I still listen to it. I listened to it a couple days ago. I listened to it, of course, today for this show, but I listen to it regularly. It's just an amazing album. And it's a super group. I list them as a super group, and it's possibly my favorite super group.
Well done. This hit UK number 14, US number 81, as I've said. I think it's a head scratch. It should have done huge numbers because there's a lot of bands that were going top 10, top 20 in hard rock, heavy metal that this, runs rings around. So, all right. Well, I think you probably guessed mine. Assault Attack.
I had a feeling that you would pick this.
Yeah. Look, this was my entry point, and it's really hard when you've got an entry point to a certain band. It's very hard to erase that. It kind of dictates your taste palette for the rest of the discography. I love Graham Bonnet. Yeah, look, I saw Graham Bonnet live, Pete, and he did Alcatraz, he did Rainbow, and all the way through it's one volume. His mouth is just wide open and he belts it. He's what we call in Australia a belter. He just belts the songs out. There's not much light and shade, but for the purposes of rock and roll, he's really good. And the material on this album is just sensational. Assault Attack. I love that that riff and that beautiful melancholy guitar lead break in the middle. It's kind of emotional. It's moving. He has these really beautiful classical melancholy lines that he throws into these songs, and you just go, oh, I didn't expect that. Rock You to the Ground, Dancer, Samurai, I know them. Desert Song, the slow build-up, they're all great songs. They're all hummable. It's a shame that this band didn't last longer. And the reasons why is that, I think it's out on internet. You can read the facts, but Graham Bonnet had one show. I think it was a warm-up gig, and he got very drunk and was stumbling around the stage, and that was the end. We never got to see Graham front this band until much later when they did the Michael Schenker World or whatever it was, where he brought all the singers back. But I love the Martin Birch production. As you say, I'll say it's widescreen. It's got that big, and I think fresh off the Number of the Beast, I think Martin would have been pumped up, amping up this. I think it's probably his last great record if you're going to look at the discography. I've got a lot of Schenker, even the later albums, but I just think the top, first 3 or 4, that's the golden period. That is I will direct any, new fan to this group, seek out those first 4 albums and you'll be on your way. But getting back, I'm ranting on a little bit, just the tonality of Schenker's guitar playing and Graham Bonnet, his vocals are just, they're really full on, but I just think it's perfect for the material. And I love the album cover too. It's great. And the logo, not many better than that. Well, there you have it. Have you guys seen Michael Schenker live, Pete?
I never did.
What about you, Joe?
No.
Either have I.
Yeah.
He's on my wish list.
I had a couple opportunities and I don't know. They sold it. Remember they sold out like a week's worth of shows at House of Blues.
House of Blues, right?
I didn't go to any of those. And couple of years ago, he was touring with that all-star band, and someone had a ticket, and I couldn't make it. Yeah.
Yep.
And then, with UFO, I saw him only with Chapman. Scorpion's first US show at Chicago Fest, Peter Jones. I was at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at that show, and we saw Francis. Yeah. So Francis Buchholz is out there, and we're like, is that Michael Schenker? Because we're standing there. He's got big blonde hair, and I'm like, nah, it's the bass player. But at first we got all excited that maybe Schenker was on stage with him, but no.
Yeah. But look, I kind of troll his website and say, please come to Australia, please come. And he gives me a thumbs up, but he never comes. And it's all about economics, because he'll come down to Japan, and everyone who comes to Japan goes to, just down to Asia, which is Australia. And he just, I think it's the economics. Hey, you guys, any quick thoughts about this album? That's Gary Bartle. That's his real signature. I acquired in a secondhand record store for $5, and I don't think they're aware they had something in their racks that was worth a bit more than $5.
It's one of my favorite live records. I think the beauty of it is that there are times, and I've a lot of stuff with Whitesnake and some other times where Cozy's drums weren't always recorded very well. His snare drum was either too loose or too loud in the mix and kind of blew things up. This is just dead on. And you really have to get the extended reissues of that to put the tracks back in that are missing. Cozy's drum solo is missing. A bunch of other stuff that's not on that original release. And it's a must get if you're a fan of that album. So get the reissue one with the stuff that was taken out. But Gary's voice is very solid, and I think Michael Schenker's tone, if I was to have somebody say, give me the example of his guitar tone, it's the sound he gets on that live album. Where right before they go into Lost Horizons, where he does the Cavazier Concerto with him and Paul Raymond, those low end barks that he's doing with his wah is just glorious. It sounds like 100 Marshalls all on 12. And it's just so great. And of course, the Japanese audience were just absolutely eating them up. They were massive fans of Cozy. Cozy would, look, I remember that great line. So he introduced the band. I should have done him last. He introduces Cozy, and Cozy they go in berserk. I should have saved him for last. So I think that's great. All the tracks are good. I even like the Dr. cover that's on there. And I think it's an absolutely spectacular record. I love it.
Yeah. Joe, any thoughts on this album?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. It's just a great album. Great sound, great band that I wish I could have seen that band, but thank goodness for the Japanese. They've produced some great live albums in Japan and supported.
They've saved us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you, gents. This was a fun show. Pretty similar picks in a sort of linear way, but that was really, really fun to do. So Peter Jones, you can see him on the Contrarians, and Joe B on the Contrarians as well. Yeah. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Put your comments. Tell us what your favorite Michael Schenker album is. It may not be in the first four. It may be somewhere else in the discography. Always love reading your comments. But one thing's for sure, you'll see the three of us on a show pretty soon. Cheers.